On the subject of Wonder Wheel, we're talking, by the way, because this is live, I'm just going to talk to the people here. It's warm in here and it feels like my glasses are steaming up. So will somebody tell me if you can see that on camera? Because I don't want to look at this later and say, how come nobody told me? So that's live television. Well, it's not television, it's Facebook. So speaking of Wonder Wheel and technology, well, let's back up a little bit. Your last picture, your last released picture was Cafe Society, and it was the first film that you shot digitally. You've been a film person all this time. There's still only a couple of holdouts. It seems like Scorsese and I think Tarantino.
I was not a holdout. I don't really care about any of that technical stuff. Whatever works is fine. I'm not a sentimentalist or a purist. You know, whatever works best for the film. And when I was talking to the cameraman, Vittorio Storaro, who's a brilliant cameraman, he was saying, you know, the future is here already and everything is digital, and why don't we make the film digitally? And so I said, fine, make it digitally. You know, to me, there's no, you know, no big deal about making it on, you know, it looks beautiful either way. If you take the time to make it well and have a superb cameraman, the film looks beautiful whether it's shot digitally or shot on celluloid. If some people feel that they're traditionalists and they want to work scrupulously on celluloid, but how far do you carry that thing? Do you then just make films in black and white because that was the original tradition? Do you make just silent films? I mean, how far back do you want to go with that? So I don't really care. I'm, you know, whatever, however I can tell my story effectively is fine.
Did the change in technology impact in any way your day-to-day workflow on the set? Did it change anything?
No. It's if anything, it's a little bit easier because you don't have to stop for real changes with the celluloid and you know. But no, it's the same thing. You still have to light and take time, and the sun's got to be in the right spot, and the actors have to deliver, and you've got to think up all kinds of excuses for later. And no, it's no problem. In fact, you can do things digitally you could never do. If there's a building that's contemporary and it's a period piece, you can wipe it out digitally, and also more miraculous things. I mean, you see the miraculous effects they do in those movies, but when I was doing Midnight in Paris, I wanted the car to go faster in the street because the car went too slowly for my taste at the time. And I was able to, because it was digital, I was able to make the car go faster, but all the people in the street walked at the same pace. Years ago, with celluloid, this would not have been possible. If I sped up the car, all the people would walk funny and be sped up as well. But now the potential for graphic control is limitless.
But Midnight in Paris, you did shoot on film, correct?
Yeah, we shot it on film, but then
like
we did all the post was digital, and you know the whole world of digital is just fine. I mean, it really is lovely.
Now you've sort of taken another step on Wonder Wheel because, as far as I know, this is the first time that you've had to use digital effects, CGI effects, to shoot period. You've certainly shot period a number of times before, but what was it about shooting on Coney Island now in 2016-17 that sort of put you in a situation where you had to paint things in? And
okay, it's a good question.
Oh, finally.
Yeah, first one. When you shoot period, and the films I shot period were, let's say, in New York or Los Angeles, you can find places that will look period with a little doctoring, a little sprucing up, or sometimes very little, actually. Whereas when you're shooting Coney Island in 1950, it's vast and open. There's a gigantic open sunlit boardwalk and a huge beach with thousands of people on it. and you can't find any trace of that now. That has to be recreated, and you can only do that digitally. You know, the parachute jumps have to work, the cyclones have to work, the Wonder Wheel, well, there is a Wonder Wheel now, but there are many rides and things that have to work that are just vestigial there now. Some of them exist, some don't even exist anymore. We have to put them in. And so it was a vastly more complicated process to make Coney Island in 1950 look like Coney Island in 1950 than to make New York or Los Angeles look like New York or Los Angeles in 1930 or 1920. You have a leg up in those places.
Mm-hmm. And didn't you tell me recently that you've even been able to do things where you need a lot of people, a lot of extras on a beach,
Yeah.
and you can take maybe 100 extras but make it look like 400 extras? Is that?
Yes, I did that in I think the movie To Rome with Love. We're limited because we don't have much money to make these movies. So let's say I can afford 100 extras. Because remember, the extras have to be costumed. You got to have makeup people from.
If it's
It
period,
isn't
yeah.
just a live body there. Every time you add an extra, you're adding more people, and it's a much more complex thing and expensive. So then you look out into the theater, let's say, and you got 100 extras. It's nothing. The theater holds 1,500 people or 1,200 people. So they have ways of taking the 100 and shooting them, and then moving the 100, switching costumes, and moving the 100 over here, and then blending it all together. So when you look out into a great theater, you're seeing 1,500 costume people. Now, if you stop the film and really take a magnifying glass and look at the faces, you might find some similarities, and you might not. I'm not sure. But, in the course of events, you don't. And these things are all helpful to someone like myself who operates generally on a very limited budget.
Right. I imagine one thing that's different for you now is traditionally you shoot a picture, you cut your picture, and the editing process is even faster now because that's digital. But here now you've got the extra step of waiting for somebody else to do these digital paintings and then showing them to you for your approval and all that. Are you in the process now where things are still coming in? Or is the
No, I
picture
just
locked?
finished this week. Yesterday we finished the mix, the music's all in, and the special effects are in, with the exception of maybe one or two minuscule ones which because I don't even notice myself, maybe in the background there's a contemporary lamppost or some little thing that we want to get out. But basically the picture's finished and will be viewable soon. And then what happens is the company that releases it, I believe Amazon in this case, but all the companies are the same, have these voodoo meetings where they decide what's the best way to put the film out to minimize the box office.
To minimize.
Yeah, because that's always what happens. It's always, we'll put this out in the summer because it'll be counter-programming to all the big movies, or we'll put this out in Easter, or I got a great idea, let's put this out in after the end of the summer. It's perfect. It's Academy Award time. They've always got some kind of story, and then they have a counter story of, well, all the kids are off from school in Easter, so they didn't go to the movies, or there was a heat spell and everybody went to the beach, or it's the Jewish holidays after, Labor Day and nobody goes to the movies, or we were in competition with the World Series or the Olympics. But there's always a story as to why their plan to really squeeze the last dollar out of the box office of the picture has failed miserably, and the picture is awash in red ink.
So they have an excuse. They're covered either way. If it does well, they'll say we planned it, and if it doesn't do well, they say, well, there were these circumstances that we couldn't avoid.
It's usually the second.